Well, okay. So what I thought we would do, because we had some conversation at the end of the session 2 weeks ago. Um, I wanted to finish chapter two, and then highlight some of chapter three,
Yeah.
and then we're going to take a go on hiatus for a month or so,
Right.
and then when we can come back. Where did I write them down? I wrote them down somewhere. Um, October 15 and October 29, and we'll do
15th
some
is
selections from the remaining parts of Proverbs. Certainly,
Oh, yeah.
chapter
I,
31.
I'm sorry. There's a problem with my connection. Could you repeat what you said about the future sessions? I
Yeah,
missed
I
it.
said we'll do
Something
today
about October.
the holidays, and then we'll be on hiatus for about a month. So October 15th and October 29th
gotcha.
would work, and
Okay.
we'll look at some selections from later on in the book. As if the feeling was not to continue going all the way
Oh,
through all the
Right.
book.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's some things
okay.
that
So would you like me to go ahead and set up?
please, the
Would you
15th
like
and
me
the
to go
29th.
ahead and set up October 15th and October 29th as future
Yes,
Zooms? Uh,
yes. Thank you,
okay.
Steve. Yes. I think Stacy has them already tentatively on the calendar.
Okay.
And then when we meet in October, we can decide. I know that Rabbi Miri, for example, wanted to get to talk maybe about one of the narrative books and one of the historical, whether Joshua Judges or something like that,
Okay.
or Kings,
Mhm.
so we can certainly talk about that. But I do want to do a couple more sessions with Proverbs, and then we'll see. Okay. Um, traditional blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen. Amen.
Um, the reminder to set the tone of with chapter two, and we're actually going to start at verse 6.
Yeah.
Reminder about chapter two is that it's the it's the teacher or the advisor, or what I coined a phrase, the proverbian, something like that. Who is speaking in the name of wisdom, discernment, understanding, those virtue. Those were the concepts that we were throwing out as being the subject of the teaching. uh, and I gave you a quote from Maimonides that the way we walk in the world is as important as the direction in which we are walking. So the way we walk is just as important as the direction that we take. And that's a kind of a play on the Hebrew words of hadracha and halacha, is of the paths that we choose to take, and that by which we walk, or through which we walk. Maimonides goes so far as to say that that choice or that decision should even be uh, considered like one of the 613 mitzvot. So the framework again, and it always reminds me, in the little that I studied of philosophy, or the little I remember of Greek philosophy,
Oh,
is
that.
uh, even though we had, my degree's from a Jesuit college, so everyone had to have everyone had to take a certain number of courses in theology and philosophy, no matter what your major was. And then you were only like one or two courses short of having an extra double minor. in philosophy. So my last 2 years of undergraduate school, I did nothing but psychology, sociology, philosophy, and theology. But
Wow.
you know the so you know, I always start identifying some of these things with the Greek philosophers and what they call the ideals, that there is such a thing that has life as truth or virtue or honesty or integrity. And it's not necessarily the same way that the rabbis or the earlier commentators in the Mishnah and the Talmud, the way that they necessarily would have looked at this literature like Proverbs. But certainly by the time that you get to the medieval commentators, they were aware of the Greek notions that honesty can speak, virtue can speak, you know, knowledge and wisdom can speak and become part of our lives that way. So, in the end of chapter 2, starting with verse 16, takes a little bit of a turn, and this is why I wanted to save it rather than getting into it just at the last for the last few minutes 2 weeks ago when we were together. So let's break it up 16 through 19, and then 20 through 22. So would someone like to read 16 through 19? Chapter 2, 16 through 19.
Since it concerns my sex, yes, I
Yeah.
would like to read it.
Oh,
It
okay.
will clear my throat. It will save you from the forbidden woman, from the alien woman whose talk is smooth, who forsakes the companion of her youth and disregards the covenant of her God. Her house sinks down to death, and her course leads to the shades. All who go to her cannot return and find again the paths of life.
Okay. All right. Again,
Sounds like Halloween.
you know, this is virtue is speaking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the teacher who wants the ultimate ethical behavior, moral behavior on behalf of his or her students. Okay. And I have to share with you this particular quote from one of the other commentaries that I use in preparing for this. This is not the social action commentary that I mentioned. This is a different commentary from some of the teachers at the Jewish Institute of Religion. That was the earlier Reform seminary in New York. So um, they're both retired, but they wrote this. While the dominant language is male based, as was the dominant culture of the time, it is clear that the sentiment can be similarly expressed from the perspective of women as well. It may be politically incorrect to say so, according to contemporary social mores, but the author of Proverbs nonetheless understands that we are at times more attracted to people outside of our own community than to those who live within its borders.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Temptation.
The attraction of the other.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So, who is this? And again, if they're correct, that despite, you know, Gail said, no, I need to say this because it's talking about the women, but, you know, that it could be interchangeable.
Sure, of course.
I don't necessarily see it certainly in the text, but in the context it might have been. But okay, and I'll explain to you why I don't see it in the text. But who is this forbidden prohibited woman?
My guess would be other than Israel, a Hebrew, not a Jew. That would be my guess. I don't know.
Or an Israelite, right? Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that would be my guess.
Okay, based on, you're guessing with.
Well, it says alien
Okay.
woman as well. And again, that's,
Okay, so let's throw in, and Steve can jump in too. Let's
Yeah,
let's
I'm
let's
sorry I had a little technical mishap.
that's okay. That's
I had
okay.
to move my
So
location and I wasn't able to listen to the
that's all right.
conversation.
In verse 16, okay, um, we are to be saved. Virtue will save us from the Isha, that's the woman, Zara. Okay, now
strange.
the translations that we're getting are prohibited or forbidden, but Steve, where's your Hebrew take you? Isha Zara.
Strange.
Well, hopefully I don't have too much of a dirty mind here, but I think
But
that is, yeah, that is, well, of
yeah,
course, that this was a different age, and we recognize it was a non-egalitarian and non-feminist age. So, women can be a distraction and can
Yes.
pull you off the path, and they're
Yep.
referring to a particular type of woman here. Okay, not not necessarily it's okay to get married, okay, but to be distracted by a certain type of women will get you in trouble, and along with the proverbial wine women in song.
Okay, all right. So
There could be
so
too
we're
much
gonna
of that.
we're gonna
I-
we're gonna kind of list them. That's one possible intimation here, that an Isha Zara, okay, is one who represents a different lifestyle, a lifestyle and ethical or unethical
yeah,
behavior
sure.
that's directly in contradiction to what virtue was trying to teach.
Yeah,
Hey,
Or
guys,
but
guys, just spit it out. Just say prostitute. Come on.
but that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's
pretty
exactly
yeah,
what I'm saying,
prostitute or close to it.
because
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
because euphemisms are used in the Bible. Okay, they
Yes.
very seldom just come out and say things. Like
That's why I said it for him.
even I
Right.
forget
Yeah.
what king it was who was killed, who was murdered when he was in the outhouse. Maybe Norm can
Right.
remember who that was, but they didn't even say there was some sort of peculiar expression used. They
Yeah.
said he was cooling his heels. Rather
Okay.
rather than he was answering the call of nature in the outhouse. They didn't even mention that. That even had a euphemism.
Depends on the text, because we do have biblical terms for a prostitute.
Yeah.
But okay, but yes, this certainly could be that. This is one, that's number one, and that's the one that leaps out of it at us the most. Is one
Except,
who is
yeah,
what, Gail? Go ahead.
well, disregards the covenant of her God. That's where I was kind of going when I was saying, other than, Jewish
Okay,
or
what is
Hebrew values.
the covenant if she's an Israelite?
Right.
Okay, now if she's not an Israelite, the covenant of her God doesn't necessarily apply if it's God with a capital G,
Well, that's
right?
true.
Because it might be a different God.
But
But let's now look at possibility number two. If she is an Israelite,
yes.
what's the covenant that this is talking about that she's disregarding?
Well, it's known that during the various periods, that there was a lot of heathen practice that was pretty prevalent. It was ongoing, so that this was always Canaanite practices were always an influence, and people sometimes, indulged in it more, sometimes less. Sometimes there were, movements where they tried to really eradicate it, that had variable degrees of success. But
Yeah,
so we
I
are talking about Canaanite practices that were always there. They were always there.
Okay.
This wasn't like
All right,
a
ritual prostitution.
Right.
there could
How
have been some
about,
of that,
Okay,
yeah,
that's I hear you. I can see. I don't see that in this particular phrase, but that's fine.
how about
That's fine.
a sorceress or one who follows witchcraft or that sort of thing? That's another
Okay,
possibility.
so it's not necessarily just sexual practices.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know,
Okay, but
Is it?
other practices that are in the general and the Hebrew is the general of zara, of things that are foreign, alien,
Yeah.
right. Right.
maybe
whatever.
I
Okay,
maybe I
all
was
right,
struggling to say what I was trying to say, but actually I wasn't referring specifically to ritual prostitution, but just something that was fairly common throughout
yeah,
our history, that there
Hmm.
were Canaanite practices that were
okay,
continued, and sometimes
right,
people would follow, would still make their pilgrimages to the temple, but they'd also have their other practices, and there was a lot of intermarriage, and there wasn't, I don't think there was the same stigma about taking a wife from among the
agreed.
Canaanites.
Okay,
Even Samson himself, when his parents
hold
said
on to that thought. Hold on to that thought.
uh,
Okay, we're coming back to that, but hold on to that for a moment. All right, okay, because I still want to propose that the disregarding the covenant of her God is a specific reference, I think,
Right.
to the 10th commandment, to
Yes.
not committing adultery.
Right. Okay.
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 How
Okay.
about now when
Because don't forget something. In the biblical context, it was that they had a different definition of what was adultery.
correct.
Okay.
What,
And that rather than the way that we generally think
Right.
today.
Right.
what's that, Rabbi? I mean, the difference, how they thought then versus now.
Okay. So a man, because it was a polygamous society.
Okay.
All right. So a man, there was no such thing as for a man to be considered an adulterer by having relations with a woman unless she was already married.
Right.
Okay.
If she was married or betrothed, then yes, they were both subject to adultery.
Okay.
But if she was single, that act of marriage, that act of intercourse, sexual intercourse, became an act of marriage because he could have more than one wife.
Okay. I got it.
All right. And on her case, right? But on her case, because she could only be married to one husband,
Right.
so any relationship that she had with any other man
Yeah.
was considered adultery.
Okay.
All
So
right.
basically, there weren't too many John or people named John back in those days.
They were all
Sorry.
Jonathans. They were all
Sorry.
Jonathans.
I was pretty.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Yes.
Sorry,
Okay.
I had to go
All
there.
right.
No,
Okay. So I wanted to get that in
that's
there
fine.
because that's one that's um Rashi, for example, is following more like what Steve is saying,
Right.
that she was trying to entice him with
Seduce. Yes.
idolatrous or pagan kind of practices, whether they were sexual or not. Okay, that's Rashi's interpretation. Some of the others talk in terms of what I'm saying, that it was a specific relation, a specific reference to the adultery or a prohibited or not permitted sexual relationship. Okay, but there's something else, and there were those that said no, it's strictly okay. It's strictly meant a non-Israelite woman.
Mm,
Okay,
okay.
don't have any relationship with a non-Israelite, and there's an extended comment on that, and I have to go back to the Hebrew again. So the phrase is "Latzilcha me isha zara," to save you, or to save you from a strange woman. Okay, all right.
Okay. Yeah.
And they make here's a typical kind of rabbinic commentary. Okay, where have we encountered that phrase before? Not exactly spelled the same way, but Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron, who were who
Oh,
died in the presence. Okay, that was
strange,
because they offered Aish Zara.
strange
Okay,
fire. Yeah.
alien fire that was not commanded by God, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, and the difference between Isha Zara in this text and Aish Zara is the final letter Hey at the end of Isha, which stands for God. Okay, so
Oh,
in other words, this woman who should have known better, she should have known about the fire, the spirit that is with God, but because she's leaving it, because she's trying to take you astray from it, it's even a worse kind of action. Whatever. There's a whole involved commentary on that of playing with the extra letter in the Hebrew, and I found that interesting because I love those kind of things with the spelling and changing in the Hebrew.
Sorry, that
Go
I'm
ahead,
not
Steve.
exactly following. That I'm not exactly following because
Okay,
the
so they
hey,
say
well, the added hey makes it a feminine adjective. That's all.
that's besides the point.
Zara.
That's besides the point. Not from the standpoint of interpretation and
Of course.
commentary. You
Oh,
know, you can play with it. There are times also when Isha is spelled with a yud in the middle, and that's usually for a woman because God is in her, right? As opposed to
hmm.
God is added onto her at the end. You know, they do all those kinds of things. All
Are
right.
these? Yeah, just curious. Are these sort of medieval
Sure. Oh
inter?
yeah, you can find them like if you have a collection of Mikrot Gedolot, where they have all the different commentaries and
So the
whatever. You can,
period when they were sort of indulging in this would have
yeah,
been kind of
somebody, I had a professor who looked out at the class and he said, "I'm sure that there are some of you." There's a Bible professor, Sheldon Blank. He says, "I'm of blessed memory. I'm sure there are some of you sitting right here in my class in my lecture today who are either writing your own commentary, right, or playing a game of bridge in your mind." Or I mean, there were no women in our class, or thinking about your last night's date or whomever you're going out with tonight, whatever. All right. And but there's this strain that in addition to the real obvious commentaries like Arashi and whatever, there were, some of their students, some of the minor commentators who
right.
just had fun playing with the Hebrew letters. Well, if you change this, if you switch the letters around, or if you put a yud in here, if you take the yud away, what's the difference, and whatever. And they had fun with that. Those they're kind of hard to find, but they're there. Sure,
Okay.
Gail, what?
I have a question. Okay. And
I still have one more that I want to point out with. We're not
oh,
done. We're not done with 16, 17 yet, but go ahead.
okay. No, never mind then. I'll
No,
wait till
no,
we get to,
go. That's fine.
well, I was jumping to 19.
That's fine. What's
It says,
19?
all who go to her cannot return and find again the paths of life. It's like, once you've done this, there's no going back. I mean, it's like the death knell, which I find really harsh, you know?
Yeah.
Like, don't go there because that's it. The door is
Well,
shut.
Um,
Oh,
okay, is that uh, is that part of the parallelism of the end from of 18? Do 18 and 19 kind of just are they parallel and synonymous, or is it saying something different? And then I'll also share with
Okay, let's
you.
see. Her house sinks down to death in her course leads. Okay, so it's a bad path. You're going down. And once you're there, that's it. I mean, that's the way I see it. I don't know.
Well,
I can see
you know,
what
it's
Is it
a
those who go to her? Does that mean her, this particular woman, or the paths that she leads us on?
okay.
Is it more general?
Well, could I say something?
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. I think that like in any moral lesson, okay, and this is a moral lesson, these are all
Yes.
moral lessons, it's put in very black and white extreme terms. Okay, to make it to make the message very clear and not subject to any misunderstanding. So I think it's sort of a getting scared straight kind of tactic. Okay,
Okay.
they're saying, once you get seduced by this woman, you're going to be a goner. So anybody who's starting to get seduced is going to say, wow,
This
boy, I
is
better pull
this is
myself back.
hellfire and brimstone, right?
Yeah, well, a
Really?
little bit. Yeah, so I better pull myself back. They're not necessarily saying if because human nature is human nature. I don't think there's an expectation that none of us ever get tempted. We all do. Okay, we all have Yetzer Hara. And we're gonna get tempted. Okay, but they're just warning you. Okay, you got tempted, but you better be real careful because very shortly you're just going to get caught in the web and you're not going to be able to find your
Okay.
way out. Maybe initially, if you're not that far gone, you're still salvageable, but you better get hold of yourself real fast, kind of the way
Okay.
they warn drug users,
yeah,
who are, somebody is a casual user and says, I'm a casual user. No, I've got it under control. I'm not an addict, but
yeah.
so sometimes the scared straight tactic does work and say, you know what, before you know it, you will be an addict and you'll be caught and you won't be able to
Right.
pull yourself back.
Interesting that you use the phrase
But it's
straight
true.
paths.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Because
The choose.
that's
What phrase?
one of the straight paths,
Yeah.
that to go straight
Oh,
rather than okay. But what you're saying, Steve, now here's my segue. Okay. Is that Dr. Marin speaking, or is that the writer of Proverbs? That's a rhetorical question, because who traditionally, not scholarship, but traditionally, who wrote Proverbs? Remember who we said that was?
well, Solomon.
Solomon, yeah.
King Solomon.
Right.
How many strange alien wives did Solomon have?
A whole bunch,
Yeah.
Right.
A
supposedly.
lot.
So is he issuing a warning based on his own experience?
I've been there, done
Oh,
that.
Right. Is that what he's saying?
I bet he.
Or is it possible, we have no way of knowing, or is it possible that, again, this is one of those advisors, those is one of those, proverbians who's making a dig
Oh, okay.
at him? You think you're so wise, huh? But look at the temptation that you're falling into.
Okay.
It's a warning, and actually, I think that's a very good point that traditionally it's Solomon, and the wisest sayings that are said by wise men are often reflective on their own faults. For example, Shammai supposedly said, there's nothing more important, and you can correct me on this if I'm mistaken about it, but what I recall is Shammai, the famous Shammai who beat a guy with a stick, because he didn't want to answer the question, teach me Torah on 1 foot. He said, there is nothing more important than respecting your fellow man. And he was probably recognizing that he fell a little short when he said that,
Yeah.
And a lot of us do, and I think there was something about anger too, that anger is a consuming force. So anger is bad. In this, the people who say the really wise things about anger are often very angry people, who are recognizing, their own problem, and which is a good thing. It's good to have a little bit of introspection. Yeah, I was wondering if we could at some point, you told me to put aside the example of Samson, but Samson is really, and I actually was just reading a book about Samson. That is a fascinating story and very deep and very complex, because Samson was not what you would expect. That's not behavior that you would expect of a judge. He was a womanizer, a serial killer. And
he's supposed to be a Nazir. He's supposed to be one whose life is dedicated to God.
Right.
Yeah. From before birth, supposedly. Yeah.
How the mighty are fallen.
and when his parents, asked him, well, but why? And this was not Delilah. That was somebody before Delilah who remains unnamed. But he saw a Philistine woman and he liked the way she looked. And he told his parents, this is the girl I want to marry. And they said, oy vey, you can't find, you had to go to the Philistines, the Philistines, these people are treating us like dirt, and you go to them, so so yeah, there are a lot of examples of people, and just recognizing that, and I guess, it's something that I'm not trying to be too negative about, being open in this country, but it has been recognized that, there is an issue of assimilation in the US, because, if people don't have a very clear affiliation, the Jewish identity goes away. So there's even a modern lesson here, and I'm not saying, that you have to totally dismiss the possibility of being open and inclusive, but that is a force that's in place.
Well, it's been a force, and it's been a tension throughout Jewish history. I mean, it's not just a contemporary source of tension. Like you say, if you go all the way back to Samson, you go all the way back to, to those days, and then, and then it's certainly a way of, who was it? Chaim Potok, in his history of the Jews. The book's called Wanderings, but his whole way of this is we go from one culture conflict to another. That's Jewish history. As we wander from one place to another, both geographically and intellectually and spiritually, we have this culture conflict of what do we save and what do we give up, and what do we moderate and what do we conserve and what do we reform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've been doing that all throughout our history.
Except, you see, to me, that's the beauty of Judaism. Okay.
Oh,
rather
it's not a
than
negative. It's not necessarily a
no,
negative.
I understand, but there are a lot of people who would, say, well, it's
True,
got to be my way or the highway kind of a thing.
true, true,
But to
true.
me, the strength of Judaism is the fact that you think and you discuss and you get into this. I have a friend who lives across the hall from me who happens to be Catholic. Okay. She is probably my age. She's 80, mid 80s, good health, very sharp. She has just begun a Bible study. It's the first time it's ever been offered to her in her life.
Oh, okay.
Because it came down from the top, right? And you
Whose
don't
auspices?
need to study the Bible because we'll tell you what it says. I mean, that's what she said she's just in awe of the fact that she can actually sit down and read this stuff and talk about
I
it.
mean, under the auspices of the church?
Yes. It's being taught by the priest,
Okay.
obviously, because nobody else would be an authority to do it. But this is like a whole awakening thing for her. I mean, she's just almost in shock.
Yeah. Oh, no
Yeah.
question.
Oh, yeah. So there's that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry. I digress.
No. There's one other thing, again, going back to a question of where does it take us anywhere in helping us understand, or is it, or making a mountain out of a molehill? In verse 17, okay, when we're describing this alien, the strange woman, forbidden woman, whatever, what translation do you have? This one is who forsakes the companion of her youth.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
Does somebody have? I know there's one older translation that says who forsakes her husband or her lord. And the Hebrew is not the typical word for husband or master.
Aloof,
It's aloof.
which is like the hero or the it's used as in modern Hebrew. It's like a general,
Right.
or
Right.
So it's kind of a hero, or the guardian, I guess, or aloof
Interesting.
nu reavid barit, yeah, Elohe.
I mean, I kind of put it in there as role model.
Oh, okay.
The one who has led her, but she has forsaken that person
But
in her youth.
but it says companion. No, I don't know the Hebrew word for it.
Right. I don't know. I wouldn't
Companion would
necessarily.
be like, the people you used to run around with, when you were younger. What your group did, what your clique
Well,
did.
if you remember, one of the introductory verses that we had in all this was about peer pressure.
Right. Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, Steve. I would kind of throw it at you. Do you know? Do you know any other use of? I mean, aloof comes from elef and and aleph and whatever, but I can't come up with anything that leads towards a master or someone who's the general does,
I
yes,
think
have control over you, but
I think just within the historical context of what was happening, for a very long time in Jewish history, as you said, there were all sorts of influences, and there was ongoing effects of other practices within Jewish practice. And so this is, for me, that's sort of a cautionary about that. Be careful to recognize, I think a woman has, and again, this is something complimentary about the woman, okay? not in the direction we've been going, but when there's a marriage, I think the woman has more of an effect on what's going to be happening in the home than the man was. The man is more concerned about, making a living. The woman is the one with the biggest effect on how the kids are going to be raised, what the environment is going to be for kids, and how things are presented to the kids. And for me, this is sort of a cautionary that be aware of these, foreign influences that are ongoing, and your wife who you get along with very well, and don't let these influences overtake you. And of course, and like you said, Gail, that Judaism or Jewish culture has always adapted. And in spite of all these sayings, the wise men of Judaism did accept a lot of, they recognized Greek philosophy for its value, and
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
adopted it and integrated it. And Maimonides was kind of a Greek moralist, I guess.
He was Aristotelian.
Aristotelian. Yeah. So
No, it's really a strength. It's not yes to me.
yeah.
That's been my experience.
So there are things that are acceptable, but things that aren't, and there just has to be an awareness for where you draw the line, in your house.
Okay, let's look at verses 20 through 22. We'll finish up chapter 2, and then that gives us a couple minutes for chapter 3.
Okay.
Okay,
Would you like me to read, or which?
All this, and you're gonna because the goal is to follow the orchot chaim, the paths of life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one of the, incidentally, if you know what the Shulchan Aruch is, the code of Jewish law from the 1500s. That's one of the 4 volumes is Orach Chaim, the path of life.
Hmm.
And the phrase comes from here. So what's 20, 21, 22? This is the ultimate goal.
Keeps the past.
Keep the paths of righteousness, for the upright shall dwell in the land. Oh, did you want somebody to read it?
Sure, go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
Okay. That thou may walk in the way of good men. And actually, I've got sort of an old facsimile translation. And so men is actually in italics here. The translator put men in italics.
The word men isn't there in the Hebrew.
Yeah. But
Right.
but somebody put it in italics here to emphasize, all the stuff that all women were, pulling in the wrong direction. Men, okay. That thou mayest walk in the way.
It's an opposition to.
Yes,
Watch out
yes.
for the prohibited, the forbidden women, but follow the good men.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what they, and sort of any translation is a little bit of Perush. It's a little bit of commentary. So,
Of course.
okay, that thou mayest walk in the way of good men and keep the paths of the righteous, for the upright shall dwell in the land, and the perfect shall remain in it. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the transgressors shall be rooted out of it.
Okay.
Perfect.
The goal, and we encountered 2 weeks ago, we encountered this word also in the Hebrew in verse 21 is here. Gail, I think you and I have the same translation.
JPS.
Blameless.
Yeah,
Okay.
Blameless. Yeah.
Right. Or it's tamim,
which is
Tom or tamim. Right. Right. Okay. Which is, and it goes back to God says to Abraham, walk with me and be blame, the Hayei Tamim, walk with Hitalech, walk with me and be blameless, or be upright, simple. And that's the ultimate. I mean, God, we should all want to be like Abraham. Not sure with every single decision, but with,
really.
but that's the classical kind of thing, which again I would point out, if you go back several verses, is that a dig at Solomon. You think that Solomon, that wisdom and and how to be the ruler of God knows how,
Oh,
the
you're
ultimate,
frozen.
or
Frozen,
is the
cut off.
ultimate just to be considered tamim, just to be
Yeah.
considered blameless? Is that the ultimate goal? I wonder if there's a little bit of a shtuch there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to chapter 3 just for a few minutes. Let me find my text of chapter 3. Um, and I'll give it to you. Let me read verses 1 through 3, in two different ways. The old translation would be, "My son, forget not my teaching, but let thy heart keep my commandments. For
Okay.
length of days and years of life and peace will they add to thee. Let
Right.
not kindness and truth forsake thee. Bind them upon thy neck, write them upon the table of thy heart." Okay,
Oh,
1 through 3. Or here's a different one. "My young friend, don't forget my instruction, and let your heart keep my commandments. They will increase the length of your days, the years of your life, and your serenity. Don't let steadfast love and truth leave you. Tie them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart." I don't know if anybody
no,
has
no.
something totally different. Starting with this notion, okay? So now we're back to whoever it is who's talking,
Uh,
but the commentators kind of pick up on the fact that whoever this is, the teacher, the guide, the advisor, the parent, okay, talks in terms of my Torah, B'ni, my son, which also could be my friend, my student, whatever. Torah T, my Torah. And the commentators pick up on that and say, is that good, or is that presumptuous that the proverbian, whoever the writer is, the speaker, is putting his or her lesson as high as the mitzvot,
hmm,
as high as God's word?
hmm.
Maybe not, because Torah is actually a teaching. So this is Torah with a little t rather than a big T.
A Torah
Yeah,
with a little
yeah,
t.
yeah,
Okay, all
yeah.
right.
So it's just, my teaching, because this is all a very long morality discourse, that's being delivered. And it's not the word of God. It's the proverbian or the father figure. So,
Okay,
just
except in the
he's
second.
just saying, please, listen. And it really doesn't say that. It does say in the beginning that here's an implication in the book of Proverbs that, of course, all wisdom does emerge from God, that, being God-fearing is the basis for all this morality, whatever, God-fearing exactly means. But then it goes on, there's not a whole lot of mention of God. It's just, I'm telling you this, I'm telling you that. The fact that God is implied, but God is not mentioned.
Now, I'm
It
gonna
just
I'm gonna I'm gonna disagree, dear friend. Okay, because I see it as the commentators do, that by using the word Torah, and then in the second part of the first verse, talking in terms of that these are my mitzvot, my
Right.
commandments. I see that as an intentional trying to raise his own teaching to the level of God's. And again, if as was the tradition, you saw this as royal decree. If this was Solomon, it would make sense for him to say, "My word is as important as God's."
Okay.
But everybody can have their own impression about it.
Well,
That's fine. Okay. But that, and then you go on what are the rewards, length of days, years of life, and peace. Those can come just as much from the things that I'm telling you as they are promised by God in the Torah, kind of thing. Okay,
I,
because God wants you to wear them as frontlets between your eyes, and da 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 da. I
yeah,
want you to wear it on around your neck, because
and
because
your
you're
throat.
between your eyes and on the doorpost, on your doorpost and on your head. That's already taken. So I have to claim a different part of your body for you to wear an amulet or something to remind you of my teaching.
I like the phrase too, the tablet of your mind. I think that's a really interesting phrase, the tablet of your mind. Write them. Wow.
And yours,
I
it
think,
says
yeah,
it says mind, huh? In
Write
verse
them on the
3.
tablet of your mind. Yes. Yeah, this is from the JPS.
Yeah, okay, because the Hebrew is definitely
and
heart.
your heart.
But yeah, but we
Okay.
did explore a couple of weeks ago that to many of the rabbis, the heart and mind were synonymous.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Could I say something?
of course.
That this is, and actually, the phrase, it's very similar to the phrase that has been rabbinically interpreted as requiring physically to affix, a passage from Torah on all
Right.
your doors, and also to put amulets on your
Phylacteries.
head. But my understanding again here is that, with all due respect to the rabbis, I think it was meant sort of metaphorically. And
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and that,
Of course.
when they say write it upon your heart, they're not telling you to stick something on your heart that's written.
Right.
They're telling you that this has to become a part of your daily habits. Once it's really a part of your daily practice, then it really benefits you. It has to be something that just comes naturally to you, that you're incorporating all the time. Okay, then
Yeah.
that's what it's
Oh,
really saying. And actually, that's a
absolute.
very modern concept. I think that agrees with what self-help psychologists would tell you today, that if you follow certain practices, and they become habit for you, that you will find health benefits. They all say that it'll boost your immunity, you'll live better. Okay, you just have to make it part of your daily practice. You could change your life by modifying the way you see the world, and
Mhm.
inside your head. So for me, that's what it's really saying. It's not, sort of imposing rules and saying you have to carry this around as some kind of written tablet all the time, or wear it somewhere. It's just saying, make this part of you. Okay, so you can do it naturally, and then it'll help you.
Right, but I agree. Therapeutically agree. And all that. But again, as was noted, the Israel they're Israelites. They're interacting with other peoples who
Right.
do wear amulets and do have face painting and different kinds of things. And this was a way, and in addition to circumcision, this was a very visible sign of who was and who wasn't in the, in the clan and in the people. But again, when I was reading some of the commentaries, I noticed this thing of, okay, well, God, as in Adonai, has already claimed putting something between your eyes and on your, on your hand. What? So I'm going to claim put something around your neck, just to show obedience to me. Yeah, I like that. Let's jump to 13, 13 to 18.
Oh, wait.
Oh, go ahead. Sure. I'm sorry,
Wait.
Gil.
Go to 5.
Go to 5.
Yeah,
I have to
verse
change. I have
5.
to turn pages. Sorry.
No, verse 5. Verse
Yeah.
5.
Yep.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart. The second half is really interesting to me. And do not rely on your own understanding.
Right. That's
Find
incidentally,
that
that is,
really interesting.
yeah,
Really interesting.
that's repeated, although I think the Hebrew is different, but that's repeated in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of the
Oh,
Father.
yes,
Okay.
true.
That's a very, very good. So what does it say to you?
Well, it just says, just don't try to figure it out. Don't try to analyze it. Don't, argue. Just let it go and just be. That's what it says to me. Just let it be. Don't try to figure it out, because
It's what my
first of
mom.
all, you're not going to be able to. So
I think my mom studied that line because that's the advice she gave me. If I got on something, she said, just don't try to figure it out, just let it go.
right,
Is it
yeah,
is it let it go, or is it
no,
don't just trust your own, and make sure that you consult, make sure that you seek advice, make sure that you seek instruction.
Well, I think it's human nature to try and make things easier for us by sort of finding justifications and modifications. And I think it's a warning not to do that,
exactly.
that not to get caught up in, I guess maybe I'm not using the right word, but it's sort of, we can always sort of, like, if everybody is in the office is stealing paper clips, and you kind of tell yourself, well, everybody's doing it, and what's a paper clip, and yeah, I'll take home a few boxes too, it's just telling you, don't get caught up in
No,
that. That's all. Don't sort of modify the rules to make things easier for yourself, because there's a real temptation to do that, and it's just human nature, and that can also get you in some trouble.
that isn't what I'm seeing at all. For
Yeah.
instance, in meditation, which I try to do on a regular basis, I don't think about anything. I just observe what's going on in my own mind, or what's out there, or whatever's happening. Don't judge, don't analyze, I don't try to rely on figuring it out. I just am. That's a whole different lack of thought process, I guess you could say. Maybe I'm being
Does
too
it
obscure.
mean don't does it mean don't just follow your impulse?
Yeah, it says don't rely on your understanding. In other words, if you can't figure it out, it's okay. It's okay. It says don't rely on that. You don't need that.
What do you need?
Well, it says trust. Just says trust.
Yeah.
But you don't need to, say, well, okay, why should I trust God, and blah, blah, blah. And, you go down that road. To me, I don't know. To me, that's
Okay. So I'm glad that you asked us to look at this. So should we put trust, and I mean, in modern Hebrew, the phrase, bitachon or whatever, leans more into security. Okay, that should we put trust in God on as high a level as understanding and discernment, and faith? So is it like trust in God is more important than your own understanding? If it says lean
Probably.
not upon your own?
Yeah, yeah. Who are you to make the, where were you when I, and made the earth, and you
Yeah,
go back to
okay.
Job.
Well, the commentaries, the traditional commentaries go in kind of a different direction out of this, like I said, and they wind up quoting this, or Pirkei Avot winds up quoting this in a section where they talk about literally about education, okay,
Okay.
and the need for finding a good teacher whom you trust. Uh, and maybe trust isn't the right word, but someone who inspires you, someone who motivates you, someone who can be a friend as well as an instructor.
Okay.
Um, and they base it on, there's a midrash. They base it on that who is it? Rebecca, who when she has the twins in her womb,
Mm,
and she's complaining and whatever, and God said, no, just trust in me.
right.
Okay, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and there's a midrash about that she went that God sent her, or Isaac sends her to yeshiva. Now there obviously were no
Right.
yeshivas in those days, but to the yeshiva of these two famous characters, Shem and Ezer, that one is supposed to teach her goodness, and the other is supposed to teach her how to maintain a kosher home,
Okay.
kind of thing. And as a result of all those lessons, she calms down and she's able to give birth to the twins.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
right.
So, for instance, I get ill and I go to Steve and I say, Doctor, do something, right? I don't have to understand what he's doing. All I need to do is trust Steve that he's going to do
Yeah.
the right thing. I
Right.
don't need to
I wish I
understand
had
in
more
order to
like
get
you.
better. What, Steve? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I said you're a great patient. I wish you had more. I had more like you when I was doing it. Oh.
But I think that's true in any situation. And sometimes when you don't have to rely on your understanding, you do better. You see things clearer, I guess, and
Okay.
you
So
can
so
relax
so
into the
Gail,
moment.
is what you're saying is that the more significant word is don't rely on, not it's okay to have your
Yeah,
own understanding, but not to rely only upon your own
right,
understanding.
right. It's not a necessary. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. There we go.
But I just think it makes life so much simpler if you just sit back, observe, and but you don't have to understand every little detail. Yeah.
No. Okay, got it.
Okay. Sorry.
Historically,
Digress.
historically, people such as Maimonides did really strive to understand. That's why we have all this,
No, I understand.
tradition
Yeah, yeah.
of rabbinic commentary and
Yeah.
just going through it. So still, I'm seeing it a little different. I think it's kind of a warning that some that the I don't think it's so much understanding. I think it's human nature to sort of
Of
play
course
with
it
things
is.
a little bit and modify a little bit. Like,
Of
for
course it
example,
is. Of course it is.
like there was a like Philo of in the
Alexandria.
and yeah, in Alexandria, okay, said, who was a very, in his style, he was very Hellenistic. But he said, he did object to the uh to the Jews who said, well, the mitzvot, following all the mitzvot of Shabbat, that's not really that important. The important thing is to have a mental Shabbat, and think about it, and so you do a little commerce, that's not a big deal. And he said, no, that's a mistake. That's sort of doing this sort of mental modification and playing with it a little too much.
Oh, of course it is.
And making it too easy for yourself, that you have to avoid overdoing that. It's okay to think about mitzvot. It's okay to be a thinking person, because obviously the person sitting and listening to all the Proverbs is a thinking person. Not a robot. It's not a robot.
Of course.
But watch out for that trap of playing with things a little too much and making things a little too easy for you, because that's human nature. We can always figure out ways that we can do stuff that isn't exactly kosher. That's, and especially when there's peer pressure, or within a particular environment in the office, that there's certain things done and that are not quite okay. And the easier thing to do is not to speak up if you see things that are not okay.
It isn't. That isn't
just to play ball with everybody else, and be
no. That's not what I was saying. No. I wasn't saying going along with the flow, whatever it is.
No,
it's human nature.
I'm not saying you were saying that. I'm just saying that that's kind of what it's saying to me, rather than.
I agree with Gail.
Okay.
Because sometimes I have to overthink, like, top of the doctor thing. I've had over 30 surgeries, so I'd read a lot of medical books and get in detail. And some doctors would say, "Man, boy, you're the hardest patient I ever had." And then I started thinking I'm overthinking, and then I need to just let things go and trust in God.
Trust in God overall, but then trust the surgeon.
Trust the surgeon. Oh yeah.
Trust and verify.
And
right.
Yeah.
Or actually, what they say, the reality is, trust the nurses more than you trust the surgeons. Right?
Well, there's that too.
Yeah, right.
I've had some horror stories from some nurses, but I've had fantastic nurses.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we all have had, So.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want to let's have just a couple of minutes. So if you flip to verses 13 through 18.
Oh, okay.
Many of those are going to sound familiar.
Okay.
Whether it's English or Hebrew. Okay? Because most of these verses are in the Torah service liturgy. Either before we take the Torah out of the ark, or when we're putting the Torah back in the ark.
Yeah.
And sometimes in a little bit different order. But again, so I'll read it this way from this a little more modern of a translation. 13 is, happy is the one who has found wisdom. More profit can be realized from it than from silver, more gain than from gold. It is more valuable than coral. Nothing you desire can compare to it. Long life is in wisdom's right hand, wealth and honor in the left hand. Her ways are ways of pleasantness. All her paths are peace. It is a tree, Eitz Chaim Hi. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Sound familiar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Something about a woman, as I recall.
What?
Something about a woman.
Something about
He's
a
more
woman.
precious. Yeah.
Oh, more. Oh, no. That's
Precious than rubies.
We'll get to that next month.
Oh.
That's the woman who's more precious than rubies.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So two comments. One is, it's interesting in in 17, which we usually see them flipped. We usually see 18 first and then 17 is the way we have it in the prayer book in the Siddur.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But in Proverbs, 17 comes first. Darche dracheha darche noam. Okay. And v'chol netivoteha shalom. Noam is almost everywhere translated as pleasantness. Okay. And it's a
Yeah.
word we kind of skip over. What is pleasantness? And most of the commentaries kind of focus on being free of worry.
Oh, okay.
That's how they define pleasantness, free of distraction, free of contradiction. Okay. Again, I don't know, Steve, Noam from modern Hebrew,
it's the same as Naim,
Naim, right.
which is pleasant,
From Hine Matov, right.
that's that's this sort of the same root and
Yeah.
roughly the same form. So I would say
Yeah.
pleasantness.
Okay. And then this is probably something that people have never noticed, and I had to be reminded of it because I hadn't thought about it since liturgy class 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago. In 18, which is the Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim Hilama Chazikim Ba. It is a tree of life to those who machazikim. To machzik is to hold it, hold fast, to grasp.
Okay.
Okay. V'tomcheha, and those are her the supporters, if you will. Meushar, that goes back into a singular. So again, the commentaries in the Midrash do a thing that you need everybody to be holding on, and we'll probably say something about this at the Torah dedication in October next month. Okay, but that when everyone is grasping Torah, everyone that is holding on tight, that Osher, which is good fortune and happiness and richness, that comes to everyone, not to the individual, but to the community, to the group, kind of thing. There's the commentators play on that, the fact that it goes from plural to singular. It's the grammarians would say, wait a minute, that's kind of a pull, that's kind of a push. But I did notice that. I was reminded of it. Like I said, I hadn't seen it since liturgy class 50 years ago, kind of thing. Then okay, we're going to stop there, and I just wanted to make sure that we got to the Eitz Chaim piece, because that's the source of that. And then, like I said, when we get together again, what I say, October 15th or something like that,
You said
right?
October
That
15th. October 29th.
15th and 29th, right? That we'll look at some other selected verses. Certainly, the Women of Valor, which is was that chapter 31 or chapter 37, one or the other, I forget. I know it by heart in Hebrew. I don't have to give the chapter and verse all the time. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Are those
Thanks.
Tuesdays? I didn't
enjoyed the
check.
discussion. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Those are Tuesdays and 11 o'clock?
Those
again?
are Tuesdays, 11 o'clock. And then
Okay.
we'll have hopefully there'll be some more people, and we can get involved in a change. I know there's some people that preferred if we moved it like to 10 o'clock or something like that, but
that's a good time.
we'll see.
Okay.
Which, the 11 or the 10, John?
11's a good time.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. We'll
I
take
have
one
my
vote there.
coffee at 10.
Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. And Steve,
care.
I'll let Marty know. The Torah study is already set up, right? For the Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know
So
what?
I'll let,
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
let
just
Marty know.
confirm and make sure, but yeah, all the Torah studies are pretty much
Gotcha.
set
Okay.
up.
And you won't, so you won't be there at all on Saturday.
I will not be there.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll
All
just
right.
have to join as individuals to the
Yeah.
Zoom.
And the following Saturday, I probably won't, but that'll be Zoom also.
Zoom exclusively,
Yeah.
not
Or
hybrid.
I may have to leave early, but one way or the other.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you. Be well,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.